All right, we got disconnected from the previous live, so I'm going to continue it here. I'm not sure what's going on. Maybe it's too hot and my phone is not handling it too well. So hopefully people realize and they join back in. Let me see. I'll give it a few minutes to see if anyone joins back in, but if not, maybe I'll just call it. All right, let me give it a few minutes and see if anyone shows up. That's a bummer. What are you going to do? Something always seems to happen every time I do a live session. Something either goes wrong, I get kicked out. I don't know. Maybe it's a me thing. User error. Maybe I need like a little helper or something. Hopefully everyone joins back. They realize that I started a new live. Um, I almost wish that YouTube would tell you why it decided to crash on you. This way you can figure out what the problem actually is and try to fix it. All right, looks like some people are joining back. Um, for those who may have missed out, all I did was finish rounding off his eyes. I separated the bottom of his eyebrow and his eyelid here, creating a couple of eyelids. Now what I'm doing is I'm coming on the sides of his eyes here and I'm kind of just undercutting um, from his cheek into that eyelid. This is a point where you may need to go back in and recut some things in his, his eyeballs here, or the eye mound, whatever they call it, just to get that depth back. You don't have to go this crazy on these guys. You can leave them pretty simple and basic. But what's the fun in that? I'm not seeing any comments, so I'm not sure if my comments are working. So maybe one of you can just write something real quick and let me know. Because, like I said, this live is giving me a lot of issues tonight. All right, we got a thumbs up. Thanks, man. Thanks for stopping in tonight. All right, I'm just knocking off some of the high points on his cheek here. Ooh, we got some fireworks going off outside. Tomorrow's the 4th of July. My neighborhood always puts on a really great fireworks display, um, which they get in trouble for every year. But it's a tradition. They've been doing it for a really long time. Some of the local guys are on the corner. And I love that they do it. Give my knife a little bit of a strop. Not sure how much more I'm gonna keep going with this guy, just because I'm running out of things to talk about, and the heat's getting to me. Let's give him a couple more eye cracks here. If you do have a veiner, you can use that to separate his eyebrows. This could very easily be just a knife only project, but like I said, if you got them, use them. Fun fact, wood spirit is one of the very first things I ever carved. I just loved how they looked, and I found a tutorial on YouTube on how to carve a very simplistic one. It was almost like a tiki style wood spirit, and I still have it. It hangs on my shelf behind me over here. I did it out of a block of mahogany, and I used a really bad, dull, cheap set of craft store chisels. I'm not even sure where I got those, but it took me a really long time to carve a very simplistic looking face. Um, and then I decided it needed to be sanded, so I spent even longer sanding it. But it was fun to work on. Came out pretty cool. And that was it. I was hooked. Then I actually tried carving with a Dremel for a while, which was fun, but it was too cheap to buy the right kind of bits, and it was pretty noisy and dusty. You needed to wear your respirator and headphones. I didn't have a proper way to brace the carving either, like to clamp it down. All right, I separated his eyebrows. Should we give him a lip, bottom lip here? Why not? Let's do it. So basically just drew his bottom lip, created a stop cut, and I'm just cutting up into that lip carefully so I don't snap off the piece of wood. And you know, these spirits are basically just Santas without hats. So you can very easily turn this guy into a Santa or turn a Santa into one of these guys. Just leave the hat. All right, I'm getting down pretty deep for his lip. And now we want to give him a little bit of an open mouth here. Just going to go in tip of my knife, following that mustache, one way, the other way, and just go in, pop that chip out. There we go. We got a mouth, open mouth. And then you just come back and you round off that bottom lip. Get rid of any unwanted pieces. There you go. Bottom lip. Simple. All right, we went from fireworks to thunder. Some weird weather we're having here. It's been 105 degrees for the last couple of days. And now it's raining and thundering. Well, hopefully the rain will cool everything off. All right, what do we want to do with his beard? Should we leave it round? Someone let me know in the comments. What do you want to do? Leave it round or make it all funky looking and like this? While I wait for someone to let me know their thoughts, I'm going to just knock off some of this saw marks and all right, he's getting a little bit more to where I want it to be. All right. So no one has thoughts on his beard, so I'm going to just leave it round. All right, let's get to adding some detail, and then I guess we'll call this guy done. The detail for me is usually my favorite part. It's where the piece really kind of comes to life, rather. Um, so that's the fun part for me. Let's give this guy a lot of weird depth of hair going on. Start by drawing a bunch of random lines. Usually I try to make it flow to some extent. And I just follow them pretty loosely. For this guy, I think I want some of his beard tucked under other parts of his beard. So we gotta start creating depth and layers. So this part is gonna tuck under this part here. So I'm just gonna cut and remove material, tucking it under. The bottom is always a little tricky because it's end grain. Doesn't behave too well. All right, we got one section cut. I don't like how that comes to a abrupt square stop. So I'm going to just add a little bit more depth like that. Now I want this section here, this section to stick out and that section to be pushed in. So we're just going to carefully tuck that section under. Make sure you pay attention to the grain direction and go with the grain. Try not to fight it. Otherwise you'll get some tear out and awkward looking pieces. There. We're going to just continue to do that all the way around his beard. Okay, another section. Sorry, I'm not talking as much. It's kind of a part of the carving where I'm a little bit worried about slipping, so I'm trying to pay attention more to not cut myself. Especially when I'm down here at this bottom section. Did any of you check out the last episode of the podcast I did with Steve Hunter? Steve was a really interesting guy to talk to. He's been carving pretty much as long as I've been alive, and he sells a bunch of kits and tools and equipment, and it's really fun to talk to him and hear about his journey. And I thought it was really interesting. He's not a fan of painting, neither am I. And he said he actually gets, I believe it was his daughter who paints his pieces for him, or at least some of his pieces. So I thought that was really cool that he was able to share his craft with his daughter. So I'm not seeing any comments coming through. So I'm not sure if you guys are actually just not commenting or something's wrong with the live, but I'm gonna just keep plugging away. All right, let me see. Do I want to add a little more? Nah, I'm gonna just leave it. I think that's cool. Next thing, I'm going to take my gouge and create a little bit of flowiness to his beard here. Now you can draw this on. You can draw little pencil lines and how you want it to go. I'm winging it. This is just helping to create even more depth and layering and texture. Don't be afraid to really dig deep and create some facets here. Try not to destroy the bottom of his lip. Watch that end grain. So I'm just using like a shallow gouge for this. Um, you could just use whatever you have on hand, or you could just leave it. So once I create all of those texturing facets, you could leave it at this point. You could take it a step further. That's what I'm going to do. Now I switch over to a smaller gouge. Maybe I'll go even smaller. What do I have here? Got one of these guys. And I'm just going to go where I made all of those facets with the bigger gouge, creating some lines. Creating even more flow. Remember, this is supposed to be hair, so make sure that it twists and it turns. You can connect them. You can make some of them stop shorter, make some of them longer. Do your best to go with the grain on this because you'll get a lot of tear out. Hold the tool in a manner of what's comfortable for you. I swap back and forth a lot. Um, but always be aware of where the tool is going, how to control it. So that added a whole lot more texture to it. You can add. And you can take it even further if you wanted, with either your knife or a V tool or little veiner. I like the veiners, um, especially these fine ones, because now you can kind of go in and add even smaller, like strand details. You can go inside those gouge marks you just made to cut them even deeper. Another method is with your knife. It takes a lot longer, but you can take the tip of your knife and slice in and remove just a little sliver of material. You see how that knife mark just really pops? Do a couple more so you can see. This takes a lot of patience and could take you, you know, pretty good amount of time. I think it's worth the effort, and you see the difference really pops, really stands out, especially when you get the oil on it. Um, like I said, this is one of my favorite parts is actually doing the details. So I don't mind sitting here for an hour, you know, cutting out these little tiny slivers. It does get pretty repetitive and boring after a while, but it really does add a lot of depth and a lot of detail to it. So if you want your guys to have a lot of depth, go for it. You know, you can probably recut where you want the separation to be. Let's do a really long curved one here. Do this guy. You know, don't be afraid to cut details in the bottom, make it a little bit more jagged looking. All right, I'm not gonna do his whole beard like this. I just wanted to give you guys an idea of what it looked like. Now I do the same thing for the mustache. I don't think I'm gonna do that here, but you know, same larger gouge, create those facets. You have to be a little bit more careful here because you're going against the grain and awkward ways, but same concept. Just create the facets. Same thing with the smaller gouge. You can separate it if you want. Give it a little two mustache half section. Maybe use your smaller V or veiner to cut that in. Sounds like the rain stopped. All right, we got some texture in the mustache. Again, you can go back in with the knife and do the same cut details where, you remove little slivers. Again, I like doing that type of stuff. Gives it a cool look. You can see it there. So just imagine that on every little section groove we just made. Same thing for the hair. I'm not going to do the hair. I'm going to leave the hair the way it is. But I would do the same technique with the larger scoop, a smaller gouge, and then either a V veiner or the knife. Um, I think the last thing I'm going to do is cut his nostrils. You can either use your knife. If you need to draw it on first, feel free to do that. I'm just winging it. I'm going to do a triangle cut. I really suggest you guys draw it on so it gets a symmetrical look. I'm winging it, but usually I draw it on. I have to go back in a couple of times and cut it and reshape it. You could do the same texturing on his eyebrows. You could keep it simple. You can leave them. I'm going to just take a little gouge and do a few notch marks. While I got the gouge, I might as well just do a few gouges in his hair, even though I said I wasn't going to do much. Just can't help it. Try to follow like a natural flow. Try to envision how the hair would fold or drape over. This section, I feel like it's coming around both ends here. Use various depths and pressure when you're doing this to create some waves and undulation. You can do these little S cuts, which really help with hair. Because hair is just basically groups of hair that are like bound together. Pure end grain here, so that's not fun. There you go. Again, you can do that same technique with the V tool and go in each line or the knife to create the depth. I'll do it on this little S section here. Makes it stand out a whole lot more, but this guy is basically done. See, we got a nice bulbous type nose. Um, yeah. We could have like narrowed his forehead here. It's jutting out a little too Neanderthalish for my taste, but yeah, um, that's what you do when you finish a carving. You look at it and you pick it apart, see where you can improve for the next time. Um, Again, like I said, I usually like to work a little bit cleaner, where I'll take really nice clean cuts instead of leaving all these chips because they really bug me and bother me. But yeah, use a nice brush to scrub all of the fuzzy pieces. Let me get some water so you can see how he stands out. Areas with water on him, get an idea of what he'd look like with oil. And I think he looks pretty cool. So not too bad. I think we'll name this guy Walter in homage of the first wood spirit I ever carved. I think I named him Walter. I wrote it on the bottom. But yeah, let me know what you guys think of this. If I should do more of these types of live sessions. And I appreciate you guys tuning in. I think that's it for now, and we'll see you in the next one. Keep an eye out for the podcast Monday, 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. New episodes drop. This Monday is a really exciting guest. I'm really happy with who's coming on. He's been a huge inspiration to me, and I think all of you will really enjoy it. So keep posted. All right. Have a good one.